The shuttle touched down on Velthara Prime with a gentle thud that made Taemin's stomach flutter. He pressed his face against the window and stared at the alien landscape before him. Purple mountains rose in the distance, and the sky shimmered with 3 moons hanging low on the horizon. But what caught his attention were the massive creatures walking on the ground below. Dragons. Real dragons. They moved slowly through the settlement, their enormous bodies covered in scales that caught the light like precious stones. Some were red, others blue or green, and a few were silver like starlight. Their wings were folded tight against their backs, dragging slightly as they walked. These wings looked powerful and beautiful, but they never opened. The dragons never flew. Taemin grabbed his research bag and followed Jiwoo down the shuttle ramp. His colleague was already complaining about the long journey from Earth. They had traveled for 3 months through space to reach this distant world, and Jiwoo had complained for most of that time. "I still don't understand why we're here," Jiwoo said, adjusting his equipment case. "These creatures have been stuck on the ground for thousands of years. What makes Earth think we can help?" "Because nobody else has tried," Taemin replied. He had read everything about the Velthari during the journey. Their history fascinated him. These dragons once ruled the skies of 100 worlds, but 3,000 years ago, something went terribly wrong. Now they couldn't fly at all. Hyun, their team leader, walked ahead to meet the greeting party. 3 Velthari approached, their footsteps making the ground tremble slightly. The largest one in front had scales the color of ancient gold, and her eyes glowed with a fierce intelligence that made Taemin stop walking. "I am Vexira," the dragon said. Her voice was deep and rumbled like distant thunder. "I lead the Sky Council, though we have not touched the sky in many of your lifetimes." Hyun bowed respectfully. "We are honored to be here. I am Hyun, and these are my colleagues, Taemin and Jiwoo. We come from Earth to learn about your people." Vexira's eyes narrowed. "To study us, you mean? To poke and prod at what we have become." She turned her massive head toward Taemin. "You are the scientist who sent the request. The one who believes our curse can be broken." Taemin stepped forward, his heart pounding. Standing before a creature 10 times his size required courage, but he didn't look away. "I don't believe in curses," he said carefully. "I believe in biology. Something happened to your people 3,000 years ago. Something physical. And if it's physical, maybe it can be fixed." A rumble came from Vexira's chest. It took Taemin a moment to realize she was laughing, though it sounded bitter. "Many have tried, human. Our own scientists worked for centuries. They found nothing. What makes you think your small species can succeed where we failed?" "Because we're different," Taemin said. "We see things differently. Sometimes a fresh perspective is all that's needed." Vexira stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned and began walking toward the settlement. "Come, I will show you what we have become." The settlement was incredible. Buildings carved from stone rose in elegant spirals, designed for creatures that once flew between them. Now ramps and bridges connected everything at ground level. The Velthari had adapted to their earthbound existence, but everywhere Taemin looked, he saw reminders of what they had lost. Young dragons played in open squares, running and jumping but never taking flight. Older ones moved slowly, their wings hanging like forgotten dreams. Some had decorated their wings with paint and jewels, turning them into art since they couldn't be used for flying. Vexira led them to a massive library carved into a cliff face. Inside, thousands of records lined the walls. "This is our history," she said. "Everything we were, everything we did, and the moment we fell." She pulled out an ancient tablet and placed it on a table. The screen flickered to life, showing images from long ago. Dragons filled the sky in huge numbers. Their wings spread wide as they soared through clouds. They looked free and powerful, nothing like the grounded creatures Taemin had seen today. "We were explorers," Vexira said quietly. "We traveled between stars before your species learned to make fire. We were proud, perhaps too proud." Her voice grew heavy. "During a great war, our scientists wanted to make us stronger. They experimented with dimensional energy, trying to enhance our flight abilities. They wanted us to be unstoppable." The images changed, showing a massive facility with glowing equipment. Then came flashes of light, explosions, and chaos. When the images cleared, dragons were falling from the sky like rain. "The experiment failed," Vexira continued. "In one moment, every Velthari in existence lost the ability to fly. Our wings still work as muscles, but something inside us broke. We can spread our wings, we can flap them, but we cannot leave the ground, not even by an inch." Taemin leaned closer to the tablet. What happened to your scientist? They died in the explosion along with 3,000 others. Vexira's eyes dimmed. I was the military commander who approved the experiment. I gave the order that cursed my entire species. I have lived with that guilt for 3,000 years. The room fell silent. Jiwoo looked uncomfortable and Hayun seemed at a loss for words. But Taemin felt something else. He felt determination building inside him. May I examine you? He asked. Not just look at old records, but actually study your biology? Vexira turned away. Many have asked. I always refused. I believe we deserve this punishment for our arrogance. But what about the young ones? Taemin pointed toward the window, where young dragons played outside. They weren't even born when the accident happened. Do they deserve to never fly? Vexira's tail twitched, a sign of inner conflict. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the young dragons through the window. Finally, she turned back to Taemin. You may study me, she said. But understand this, human. I do not believe you will succeed. I have watched hundreds of scientists fail over thousands of years. Your enthusiasm will fade when you realize the truth. Some things cannot be fixed. Taemin smiled despite her dark words. I had a sister who was paralyzed in an accident. Doctors said she would never walk again. But I didn't accept that. I studied for years, developed new treatments, and today she runs marathons. He met Vexira's ancient eyes. I don't know how to give up. Something shifted in Vexira's expression. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe just the tiniest spark of hope after 3,000 years of darkness. Very well, she said. Tomorrow we begin. But prepare yourself for disappointment, Taemin of Earth. Hope is a dangerous thing when you have been without it for so long. As the team settled into their quarters that evening, Taemin stood at his window and watched Vexira standing alone on a distant hill. She spread her wings wide against the sunset, a magnificent sight even without flight. The wings caught the fading light and glowed like fire. Tomorrow he would begin unraveling a 3,000-year-old mystery. Tomorrow he would start proving that impossible was just another word for not yet achieved. 3 months had passed since Taemin arrived on Velthara Prime, and his small research facility hummed with activity every day. Equipment from Earth filled the rooms, creating a strange mix of human technology and alien architecture. Vexira came every morning, allowing Taemin to run tests that would have been impossible with any other Veltari. Today, Taemin was studying the neural patterns in her wings when something unusual appeared on his screen. He leaned closer, his eyes widening. Jiwoo, come look at this, he called out. His colleague walked over, coffee in hand. What am I looking at? These clusters here, Taemin pointed to bright spots on the scan. They're neural bundles in the wing joints. But look at their structure. They're incredibly complex, more like a brain than a muscle. Jiwoo squinted at the screen. So what does that mean? It means the wings aren't just for flying. They were processing information. These bundles probably analyzed air pressure, wind patterns, gravitational fields, everything needed for flight. But now they're dormant, like they're locked. Vexira shifted her massive body. She had been quiet during the examination, as she always was. Locked, she repeated. That is a good word for it. We feel the memory of flight inside us, but we cannot reach it. A door slid open and a new human entered the facility. Hyun-Soo had arrived from Earth 2 weeks ago, bringing advanced genetic equipment that Taemin had requested. He was younger than Taemin, but brilliant with biotechnology. I've finished analyzing the genetic samples, Hyun-Soo said, excitement clear in his voice. Taemin, you were right. There's something strange in their DNA. Taemin stood up quickly. Show me. They gathered around Hyun-Soo's workstation. The screen displayed complicated genetic sequences that meant nothing to most people, but Taemin understood immediately. Look at these gene sequences, Hyun-Soo pointed. They're encrypted. It's like someone put a lock on them. The genes for flight capability are still there, but they're wrapped in some kind of dimensional signature that prevents them from expressing. Can you unlock them? Taemin asked. Maybe. I've been developing something I call biological decryption. We use targeted electromagnetic pulses combined with gene therapy. If we can match the right frequency, we might be able to break through the lock. Vexira stood up, her movement shaking the room slightly. You are speaking of changing our very essence. This is dangerous. All progress is dangerous, Taemin said gently. But staying cursed forever is also dangerous. It kills hope. Over the next weeks, Taemin and Hyun-Soo worked constantly, They barely slept, surviving on coffee and determination. The research facility became their entire world. But they weren't alone in their work. Taemin spent hours each day talking with Vexira, learning about her past, her guilt, and her people. One evening, after a particularly long session, Vexira told him about the day of the accident. "I was in command of our military forces," she said, her voice heavy with memory. "When our scientists proposed the enhancement project, I supported it. I wanted our people to be unbeatable in the war. I thought I was protecting everyone." She paused. "Instead, I destroyed us." Taemin sat down on a bench, looking up at her enormous form. "You didn't know what would happen. You were trying to help. Intent does not erase consequence," Vexira replied. "For 3,000 years I have watched children born without ever knowing the sky. I have seen the light fade from our people's eyes, all because of my decision. Is that why you volunteered to be studied? Because you feel guilty? Perhaps. Or perhaps I am simply tired of carrying this burden alone." Something unexpected happened during these conversations. Hyun-soo noticed it first while monitoring Vexira's neural activity during one of her talks with Taemin. "This is incredible," Hyun-soo said, showing Taemin the readings. "Look at her brain patterns when she talks to you. They're creating harmonics I've never seen before. And look at your readings too. Your human brainwaves are synchronizing with hers." Taemin studied the data carefully. Emotional resonance. "We're connecting on a neural level." "More than that," Hyun-soo said. "These frequencies match the dimensional signature in her locked genes." "Taemin, I think human emotional connection might be the key to unlocking what the Velthari lost. This discovery changed everything. For 3,000 years, the Velthari had tried to solve their problem alone, using logic and science. But maybe they needed something else. Maybe they needed connection with beings who thought differently, who felt differently." The news spread through the settlement. Not everyone was happy. Calvor, Vexira's younger brother, came to the facility in anger. "You should not interfere with our nature," he told Taemin. His scales were dark blue and his eyes burned with fierce emotion. "This curse is our burden to bear. Accepting help from others, especially from such a young species, is shameful." "Pride is what caused the curse in the first place," Vexira said quietly. "And guilt is what makes you desperate enough to trust these humans," Calvor shot back. "Sister, you led us into disaster once. Do not do it again." The argument spread throughout the settlement. Some Velthari believed Taemin offered hope. Others thought human interference was dangerous. The Sky Council met for 3 days, debating whether to allow the research to continue. Taemin waited anxiously. All his work, all his hope depended on their decision. On the 3rd day, Hayun came to his quarters with news. "The council has voted. It was close, but they've decided to allow you to continue." Taemin felt relief wash over him. What made them decide? Vexira cast the final vote. She said something that convinced the others. Hayun smiled slightly. She said that humans have a gift her people have forgotten: the ability to believe in impossible things. The next morning, Vexira came to the facility early. Taemin was already there, reviewing the treatment plan one more time. "I have made a decision," Vexira announced. "I will be the first to undergo your procedure." Taemin looked up in surprise. "Are you sure? The risks are significant. We don't know if it will work, and it could potentially harm you." "I am sure," Vexira said firmly. "If anyone should take this risk, it should be me. I brought the curse upon our people. Let me be the first to possibly break it or die trying." Jiwoo entered the room and heard the last part. "Die? Taemin, please tell me the procedure isn't that dangerous." "Any procedure that alters genetics and neural pathways is dangerous," Hyun-soo said honestly, "especially with a species we're still learning about. But we've prepared as much as we can." Taemin walked closer to Vexira. "Why are you really doing this? Is it hope or guilt?" Vexira lowered her massive head until her eyes were level with his. "Perhaps both, but also because in our conversations you have made me feel something I thought I had lost forever. You have made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I deserve forgiveness." Taemin reached out and placed his small human hand on her scaled snout. The gesture was tiny compared to her size, but it meant everything. "Then let's do this," he said. "Let's prove that 3,000 years of darkness can end. Let's prove that nothing is truly impossible." Vexira closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, something had changed. For the first time since Taemin met her, he saw not just guilt and grief, but also hope. "When do we begin?" she asked. "Tomorrow," Taemin replied. "Tomorrow we attempt the impossible." That night Taemin couldn't sleep. He stood outside under the 3 moons of Velthara Prime, thinking about everything that led to this moment. His sister's paralysis, his years of study, his refusal to accept that some problems had no solutions. Tomorrow all of that would be tested. In the distance he saw Vexira standing on the same hill where he first watched her spread her wings. She stood alone, a massive silhouette against the starlight, her wings folded as they had been for 3,000 years. Tomorrow maybe that would change. Tomorrow the impossible might become possible. The morning sun rose over the great expanse, painting the vast plateau in shades of gold and purple. This place held special meaning for the Velthari. Thousands of years ago they held flight ceremonies here. Now it served as a memorial for what they had lost. Today it might witness history being made again. Taemin arrived early with his team. They had converted a section of the plateau into a medical facility, bringing in equipment that looked strange against the ancient stone. Dayun, a neural surgeon from Earth, checked her instruments for the 10th time. She had arrived last week specifically for this procedure, and the pressure showed on her face. "Everything is ready," she said to Taemin. "But I have to be honest. I've never worked on a patient this large with biology this different from humans. If something goes wrong, I might not be able to fix it fast enough." "I know," Taemin said, "but we've prepared as much as we can. The rest is up to chance and courage." Hyunsu was calibrating the electromagnetic equipment when Jiwoo approached him. "Are you sure about the frequencies? One wrong calculation and we could damage her permanently." "I've triple-checked everything," Hyunsu replied. The resonance patterns match perfectly with the recordings of Taemin and Vexira's conversations. That emotional connection is our key. Around the plateau, hundreds of Velthari had gathered to watch. Some came with hope, others with skepticism, and many with simple curiosity. Kael'vor stood at the front with several other council members, his expression dark and disapproving. A young Velthari named Ixlin approached Taemin. Her scales were bright silver and her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Is it true? Are you really going to help Vexira fly?" "We're going to try," Taemin said carefully. "There are old prophecies," Ixlin said. "They speak of wingless ones from distant stars who would help restore our wings. I study history and I've read these prophecies many times. I believe they speak of humans." Taemin smiled at her enthusiasm. "I don't know about prophecies, but I know we're going to do everything we can." Vexira arrived as the sun reached its peak. She walked slowly, her massive form drawing everyone's attention. She looked at the crowd, at the equipment, at Taemin and his team. Then she moved to the center of the prepared area and lay down. "I am ready," she said simply. Dayun and her medical team moved forward. They attached monitoring equipment to various points on Vexira's body. The dragon was so large that it took 6 people just to place all the sensors. Hyunsu positioned the electromagnetic generators around her wings. Taemin knelt beside Vexira's head. "This is going to take many hours. The nanosurgeons need to travel through your entire circulatory system to reach all the locked neural clusters. It will be uncomfortable, maybe painful. If you want to stop at any time, just say the word." "I will not stop," Vexira said firmly. "Begin." The procedure started. Tiny robotic surgeons smaller than grains of sand entered Vexira's bloodstream. They would navigate to each neural cluster in her wings, preparing them for the electromagnetic treatment. Dayun watched their progress on multiple screens, guiding them with careful precision. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky while everyone waited. Taemin stayed beside Vexira, monitoring her vital signs and talking to her quietly. The emotional resonance between them was important. It would help guide the treatment. "Tell me about flying," Taemin said. "What was it like?" Vexira's eyes were closed, but she spoke. "It was freedom. When you fly, you are not bound by anything. The wind carries you, the sky welcomes you, and the world below becomes small and beautiful. Every Velthari dreams of their first flight. Mine happened 3,042 years ago. I still remember every moment." "You'll fly again," Taemin said. "I promise. Do not make promises you cannot keep, young human." 6 hours into the procedure, the first problem appeared. One of Vexira's wing clusters was rejecting the nanosurgeons. Her body recognized them as foreign objects and started attacking them. "Her immune system is too aggressive," Dawn said, worry clear in her voice. "We're losing half the nanosurgeons in her left wing. Can you compensate?" Taman asked. Maybe, but it will take longer and increase the risk of complications. Taman looked at Vexira. We're having difficulties with your left wing. Do you want to continue? Continue, Vexira said without hesitation. They pushed forward. Dayun worked with incredible skill, redirecting the surviving nanosurgeons and deploying backups. But 2 hours later, another problem emerged. This time, Vexira's neural pathways were showing unexpected resistance to the treatment. The dimensional lock is stronger than we calculated, Hyunsu said, frustration in his voice. We might need to increase the electromagnetic frequency. That could damage the surrounding tissue, Dawon warned. But without it, we won't break through the lock, Hyunsu countered. Taman made the decision. Increase it gradually. Monitor everything. If her vitals start dropping, we stop immediately. They adjusted the equipment. The electromagnetic fields grew stronger, pulsing with precise frequencies that matched the recordings of human Vilthari emotional resonance. For a moment, everything seemed to work. The neural clusters started responding. Then disaster struck. Vexira's vital signs crashed. Her heart rate dropped dangerously low and her breathing became irregular. Alarms blared across all the monitoring equipment. She's going into shock, Dayun shouted. Her body can't handle the electromagnetic load. Reduce the frequency, Taman ordered. It's not responding fast enough. Hyunsu worked frantically at his controls. The gathered Vilthari started making distressed sounds. Some moved forward, wanting to help but not knowing how. Kael'vor roared something in the Vilthari language that sounded like an accusation. Taman grabbed the neural link headset. It was against protocol, but he didn't care about protocol anymore. He placed it on his head, connecting his brain directly to Vexira's neural network. What are you doing? Dayun yelled. That's dangerous for both of you. Taman ignored her. Through the link, he could feel Vexira's consciousness fading. She was dying. Giving up. Accepting this as her final punishment for the curse she had brought upon her people. Vexira. Taman spoke both out loud and through the neural link. Don't you give up. You promised me you would fly again. You promised those young dragons watching that they would see what flight looks like. He felt her confusion, her pain, her exhaustion. I know you feel guilty, Taman continued. I know you think you deserve this. But what about Ixlin? What about all the young ones who were never in that war, who never made that decision? Don't they deserve a chance? Don't you want to give them hope? Something shifted in the neural link. Taman felt Vexira's consciousness focusing, fighting back against the shutdown her body was attempting. Fight! Taman demanded. 3,000 years of guilt ends today. You are more than your mistakes. Fight for your people. Fight for the sky. A surge of biological activity erupted through the neural link. Vexira's vital signs stabilized, then strengthened. The electromagnetic treatment suddenly found purchase, breaking through the dimensional locks that had held for 3 millennia. The dormant neural clusters in her wings began activating. Lights flashed across the monitoring equipment as systems that had been dead for 3,000 years came back to life. Dayun stared at her screens in disbelief. It's working. The clusters are responding. All of them. Taman removed the neural link headset, his head spinning from the intense connection. He fell to his knees beside Vexira. The procedure continued for 8 more hours. This time everything went smoothly. The nanosurgeons completed their work. The electromagnetic treatment finished its cycles and Vexira's body accepted all the changes. When it finally ended, the sun was setting. 14 hours had passed. Everyone was exhausted. Vexira lay still, breathing deeply but steadily. The procedure is complete, Da'un announced. Her vitals are stable. The neural clusters are showing activity, but we won't know if she can actually fly until she tries. The Veltari crowd had grown quiet. They waited. Taman sat beside Vexira as she slowly opened her eyes. How do you feel? Strange, she said. My wings feel different. Like they're remembering something. She tried to move but was too weak. I cannot even stand. Rest, Taman said. Your body has been through something incredible. Give it time. Days passed. Vexira recovered slowly, regaining her strength. The monitoring equipment showed continued neural activity in her wing clusters, but there was no physical evidence of flight capability. She could move her wings, stretch them, but when she tried to fly, nothing happened. 1 day became 2, then 3, then 7. Disappointment settled over the research team. Kael'vor and others spoke openly about the failure. Even Ixlin's optimism began to fade. Taman refused to give up, but doubt crept into his mind. Maybe Vexira had been right. Maybe some things truly couldn't be fixed. On the seventh morning, Vexira went to the great expanse alone. She stood there as the sun rose, looking at the sky with ancient eyes. She spread her wings wide, feeling the wind pass through them. The sensation was different now, sharper somehow, like her wings were trying to remember what they once knew. And in that moment, standing alone in the dawn light, Vexira felt something she hadn't felt in 3,000 years. The morning of the 8th day started like any other. Taman woke up tired and discouraged. 7 days had passed since the procedure, and there was still no flight. He had begun writing a report explaining why the treatment had failed. His hands moved slowly across the keyboard, each word feeling like defeat. Jiwoo came into his quarters without knocking. His face was pale. "Taman, you need to come outside, now." "What happened? Is Vexira all right?" "Just come. You need to see this yourself." Taman followed him outside. The morning sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in beautiful colors. But that wasn't what made Taman stop breathing. Hundreds of Veltari were gathered at the great expanse, more than he had ever seen in one place. They stood in absolute silence, all watching something in the center of the plateau. Vexira stood there alone. Her wings were spread wide, wider than Taman had ever seen them. But that wasn't the incredible part. The incredible part was the light. Shimmering patterns of energy rippled across her wings like waves of colored fire. They moved and pulsed, creating beautiful geometric shapes that seemed to dance with the wind. The wings themselves glowed with soft light, and the scales reflected it like thousands of tiny mirrors. "When did this start?" Taman asked, unable to look away. "About an hour ago," Jiwoo said quietly. "She came here before dawn. She's been standing like that ever since. The energy fields keep getting stronger." Hyunsu ran up to them, holding scanning equipment. "Taman, look at these readings. Her wing clusters are generating electromagnetic fields we've never seen before. It's like they're synchronizing with something in the atmosphere. This is exactly what I theorized but didn't think was possible." Hyun appeared beside them. "The entire Velthari population is coming. Word spread through their communication networks. They all want to see. More dragons arrived every minute. Young ones, old ones, all colors and sizes. They formed a massive circle around Vexira, keeping a respectful distance but watching with intense focus. Even Kael'vor was there, his expression no longer angry but stunned. Ixlin pushed through the crowd to reach Taemin. "The prophecy," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "It's happening. The ancient texts said the sky would remember before the dragons did. Look, the sky is remembering." Taemin didn't understand what she meant until he looked up. The air above Vexira was behaving strangely. It shimmered and moved in patterns that matched the energy on her wings. The atmosphere itself seemed to be responding to her. Vexira's eyes were closed. She appeared to be in deep concentration. Her breathing was slow and steady. The energy patterns on her wings grew brighter and more complex with each passing moment. "What's she doing?" Hyun asked. "She's connecting," Taemin said, suddenly understanding. The procedure restored her wing clusters, but they needed time to relearn. They needed to remember how to read the atmosphere, how to process all the information required for flight. She's not just standing there. She's learning to fly again inside her mind. An hour passed, then another. The sun rose higher, but nobody left. The gathered Velthari remained silent, watching their leader stand with glowing wings under the morning sky. Some of them had tears running down their scaled faces. Finally, Vexira opened her eyes. The glow from her wings pulsed once, twice, then stabilized. She looked at the crowd around her, at all the faces watching with hope and fear. Then she looked at Taemin. "I can feel it," she said, her voice carrying across the silent plateau. "For 3,000 years I have been deaf to the sky, but now I can hear it again. I can feel every current of wind, every shift in pressure, every gravitational pull. My wings remember." She turned to face all the Velthari gathered before her. Her voice grew stronger, more emotional than anyone had ever heard it. "I need to say something before I try. I need to speak words I should have spoken 3,000 years ago." She paused, and when she continued, her voice cracked with emotion. "I was the one who gave the order. I approved the experiment that cursed us all. I have carried that guilt every day since." Believing I did not deserve forgiveness, the crowd remained silent, letting her speak. "But this human," she gestured toward Taemin, "this small being from a young species, showed me something I had forgotten. He showed me that holding on to guilt helps no one. He showed me that hope is stronger than shame. He showed me that sometimes the bravest thing is not punishing yourself, but forgiving yourself and trying again. Vexira's voice grew stronger. My people, I cannot change the past. I cannot undo the curse I brought upon us. But I can try to break it, not just for myself, but for all of you. For the young ones who have never known sky. For the old ones who remember what we lost. I can try. A sound started from the gathered Velthari. At first Taemin couldn't identify it. Then he realized they were singing. It was a deep harmonic sound that made his chest vibrate. The song grew louder as more voices joined, creating layers of melody that seemed to shake the very air. What are they singing? He asked Ixlin. It's the Song of Redemption, she said, tears streaming down her face. It's from ancient times, used when someone sought forgiveness. We thought it was lost. I've only read about it in old texts. I never thought I would hear it. The song continued, building in intensity. The energy on Vexira's wings pulsed in rhythm with the music. Taemin watched, his own eyes filling with tears, as 3,000 years of grief and hope merged into this single moment. Vexira spread her wings to their full extension. They were enormous, easily spanning 50 meters. The energy patterns flowed across them like rivers of light. She bent her legs slightly, preparing her body. She's going to try, Hyunsu whispered. The world seemed to hold its breath. Vexira jumped and flapped her wings with tremendous force. The wind from that single flap knocked over several pieces of equipment and made the humans stagger backward. But Vexira didn't rise. She landed back on the ground with a heavy thud. She tried again and again. Each attempt was powerful, her wings creating hurricane-force winds, but her massive body remained earthbound. After the 5th attempt, she stopped, breathing hard. It's not enough, Kael'vor said bitterly. The curse remains, but Taemin saw something different. Each attempt had lifted her slightly more. Not much, barely noticeable, but there. The clusters were working, but Vexira was fighting against 3,000 years of not flying. Her body remembered being grounded more than it remembered the sky. Vexira, Taemin called out, running toward her. You're trying with your muscles, but that's not enough. You need to believe. Your wings aren't just physical anymore. They respond to your neural state, to your emotions, to your connection with the atmosphere. Stop trying to force it and just feel it. Vexira looked at him, her ancient eyes confused. How does one simply believe in flying after 3,000 years of falling? Taemin thought about his sister, about the day she took her first steps after years of being told she never would. You don't think about walking when you walk. You don't think about breathing when you breathe. Flying isn't something you do. It's something you are. Remember who you were. Remember what you are. Something changed in Vexira's expression. She closed her eyes and stood very still. The energy on her wings began to change, becoming less rigid and more fluid. It flowed naturally, like water finding its course. When she opened her eyes again, they glowed with the same light as her wings. She spread those magnificent wings one more time, but this time she didn't prepare herself. She didn't crouch or gather her muscles. She simply stepped forward and let her wings carry her, and she rose. It happened so smoothly that for a moment, nobody was sure it was real. Vexira lifted off the ground, her enormous body floating upward as if gravity had simply decided to let go. She rose 1 meter, then 2, then 5. She wobbled, tilted dangerously to one side, but she stayed in the air. The gathered Velthari erupted into sounds of shock and joy. The singing stopped, replaced by roars and cries that echoed across the entire plateau. Young dragons jumped and spun in circles. Old ones fell to their knees, unable to believe what they were seeing. Vexira flew awkwardly, her movements uncertain after 3,000 years. She dipped and swayed, her wings remembering instincts that muscles had forgotten. But she flew. For 3 minutes she remained in the air, moving in a slow circle above the great expanse. Then exhaustion caught up with her. She descended slowly, landing with less grace than she had taken off, but landing safely. Her legs trembled from the effort. Her wings folded against her sides, still glowing with residual energy. The crowd surged forward, surrounding her with celebration. But Vexira looked past all of them to find Taemin. Their eyes met across the chaos, and in that moment no words were needed. Taemin smiled, tears running down his face. He had done it. They had done it. After 3,000 years, a dragon had flown again. Ixlin appeared beside him, laughing and crying at the same time. You did it. The prophecy was real. The wingless ones from distant stars. Jiwoo clapped Taemin on the shoulder. his usual skepticism replaced with genuine wonder. Hyunsu was frantically saving all his data, knowing they had just witnessed history as the celebration continued. Taemin watched the sun rise fully over Velthara Prime. Tomorrow, they would begin treating other Velthari. Tomorrow, they would work to make flight commonplace again. 6 months had passed since Vexira's first flight, and Velthara Prime had transformed completely. Every day the skies filled with more dragons learning to fly again. Some mastered it quickly, while others needed weeks of practice. But the change was undeniable. The curse that had lasted 3,000 years was finally breaking. Taemin stood on a platform high above the settlement, watching dozens of Velthari practice flight maneuvers in the distance. Their wings caught the sunlight, creating a spectacular display of colors against the purple sky. It still amazed him every time he saw it. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said beside him. He turned to see Subin, a journalist from Earth who had arrived 2 months ago to document the story. She had been recording everything, conducting interviews, gathering footage. The story of humanity helping the Velthari had spread across the galaxy. "I never get tired of watching them fly," Taemin admitted. "Every time I see it, I remember how impossible it seemed." Subin activated her recording device. "Can I ask you something for my report? How does it feel knowing you've changed an entire species' future?" Taemin thought about it carefully. "Strange. Sometimes I wake up thinking it was all a dream, but mostly I feel grateful. Grateful that Vexira trusted me. Grateful that my team never gave up. Grateful that we proved impossible things can become possible if you try hard enough." "Earth's government wants you to come home," Subin said. "They want you to apply this technology to human enhancement projects. Military applications." Taemin's expression darkened. "I know. They've been sending messages for months, but that's not what this technology is for. The Velthari lost their ability to fly because of military experimentation. I won't let humanity make the same mistake. That's going to create problems for you. I don't care. Some things are more important than politics." Movement in the sky caught his attention. Vexira was approaching, her flight now confident and powerful. She had been practicing every day, relearning skills that once came naturally. She landed on the platform with practiced ease, her wings folding gracefully. "Taemin, we need to talk," she said. Her tone was serious. They moved to a private area where Jiwoo, Hyunsu, and several Veltari council members were already waiting. Kelvor was there too. His relationship with Taemin had improved significantly after witnessing his sister fly. He nodded respectfully when Taemin entered. "What's happening?" Taemin asked. Vexira gestured to Ixlin, who activated a holographic display. It showed data streams and recordings that Taemin didn't recognize at first. "Over the past month, something unexpected has occurred," Ixlin explained. "Some Velthari who underwent the treatment have been experiencing unusual phenomena. They're having visions. Visions of what? Other timelines. Parallel realities. They see versions of Velthara Prime where different things happened. Some see worlds where the curse never occurred. Others see worlds where it was never broken." Ixlin pulled up neural scans. "These aren't dreams or hallucinations. The brain activity is real. They're genuinely perceiving dimensional information." Hyunsu leaned forward, studying the data. "The dimensional energy that caused the original curse. When we broke through it, we didn't eliminate it. We integrated it into their neural systems. It's giving them the ability to sense dimensional instabilities." "Is this dangerous?" Taemin asked. "We don't know yet," Vexira said. "But 3 days ago, one of our people had a vision that concerns us all." "Show him, Ixlin." The display changed, showing a recording of a young Veltari named Mirthan describing his vision. He spoke of seeing other worlds, other species, all experiencing the same type of dimensional curse that had affected the Velthari. He described planets where the land itself was locked, unable to grow, species that couldn't reproduce, entire civilizations frozen in time. "The dimensional instability that cursed us isn't unique," Vexira said. "It's spreading, slowly across thousands of years, but spreading. Other worlds will face what we faced." Taemin felt his stomach drop. How many worlds? Mirthan saw dozens in his vision. But if the pattern continues, eventually it will affect hundreds, maybe thousands of worlds. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. Subin had stopped recording, her face pale. Jiwoo sat down heavily, rubbing his face. "Can we stop it?" Taemin finally asked. We don't know, Hyunsu admitted. We don't even fully understand what it is. But if the Velthari can sense these dimensional instabilities now, maybe we can develop technology to stabilize them before they cause damage. That would require resources we don't have, Ha-Yun said. Research on this scale needs support from multiple worlds, multiple species working together. Vexira stood tall, her wings rustling slightly. Then we offer Earth an alliance, a formal partnership between humans and Velthari. We have knowledge of dimensional phenomena. You have innovative technology and fresh perspectives. Together, we might be able to prevent other species from suffering our fate. Earth's council will want something in return, Ha-Yun said carefully. We offer them the Dragon Rider program, Kael'vor said. Everyone turned to look at him in surprise. He continued, in ancient times, before we could travel between stars with ships, we carried other species who couldn't fly. We formed bonds with them, partnerships where we provided transportation and protection. Some humans have proven themselves worthy of such bonds. He looked directly at Taemin. You saved my sister. You saved our entire species. The least we can do is offer humanity our wings. The proposal was transmitted to Earth. 3 weeks of negotiations followed. Some Earth officials wanted to militarize the technology. Others wanted to claim credit for the Velthari's recovery. But in the end, a different group prevailed. Scientists, explorers, and peacekeepers who saw the bigger picture. The alliance was approved. Humans and Velthari would work together, exploring dangerous regions of space to identify and stabilize dimensional rifts. The Dragon Rider program would allow selected humans to bond with Velthari partners, combining human innovation with Velthari strength and dimensional awareness. Taemin was offered the position of chief researcher for the project. He accepted immediately. 2 months later, the first mission was being prepared. 40 Velthari and 40 humans had been selected and paired. They trained together, learning to work as teams. Taemin watched from the same platform where he once stood with Subin. Are you nervous? Vexira asked, landing beside him. Terrified, Taemin admitted. This is so much bigger than helping one species fly again. We're talking about preventing cosmic disasters. That is why you are the right person for it. You have never been afraid of impossible tasks. I have a good teacher. Taemin smiled at her. They stood together, watching the training exercises below. Young Velthari flew in formation with humans riding on their backs. The humans wore special harnesses that allowed them to work with technology while flying. It looked strange but also beautiful. 2 different species working as one. Taemin, Vexira said quietly. Thank you. Not just for giving us back the sky, but for giving us hope. For 3,000 years, my people lived in darkness. You brought us light. You gave yourself light, Taemin corrected. I just helped you remember how to see it. The day of the first mission arrived. A distress signal had been received from a world called Narration 4, located 3 weeks away by conventional travel. The planet's inhabitants reported that their world's core had suddenly stopped rotating, threatening all life on the surface. Dimensional readings suggested it was the same type of instability that had cursed the Velthari. Taemin prepared his equipment while Vexira checked her flight systems. They would be leading the mission together, human and dragon, scientist and warrior. Proof that different species could achieve more together than apart. As they stood at the launch point ready to depart, Jiwoo came running up with a message pad. Taemin, another signal just came in. A world called Prexus is experiencing atmospheric seizures. Their scientists can't explain it. And there's more. 3 other worlds have reported similar anomalies in the past week. The dimensional instability is accelerating. Taemin looked at Vexira. She looked back at him. No words were needed. They both knew what this meant. Narration 4 was just the beginning. There would be more worlds, more problems, more impossible situations. Then we better get started, Taemin said. He climbed onto Vexira's back, securing himself in the riding harness. Around them, the other teams were doing the same. 40 dragons with 40 humans ready to face the unknown. Vexira spread her magnificent wings. The energy patterns that had first appeared 6 months ago now flowed naturally across them, beautiful and powerful. She looked back at Taemin one more time. Ready? Always. The fleet took off together, a sight that would have been impossible a year ago. 40 Velthari filled the sky, their wings catching the light like a rainbow. They climbed higher and higher, breaking through the atmosphere and into space where ships waited to carry them to distant worlds. Subin watched from the ground, recording everything. This footage would be broadcast across the galaxy. Humans and Velthari working together, a young species and an ancient one, combining their strengths to face challenges that threatened entire civilizations.